Good Monday to you, everybody in COM 785. Welcome to a discussion of this week's material. Let's get this going correctly. Little espresso. All right, now it is I again, your sufficiently caffeinated communication instructor, Dr. Gardner. Unless it's me without my glasses, it appears as if my camera is a little fuzzy, a little hazy. If that's the case, if you're getting that as well, shoot me an email. This is not a cheap camera, but it may be time for another one. All right. Well, that notwithstanding, this week at week 2, we are now going to turn our attention to looking at the fundamentals of public relations. And remember, in this class, we're going to look at 3 major sections of strategic communication. All right. We're going to take a look at PR. Then we're going to take a look at marketing, specifically marketing that involves online, electronic, and/or social media, and then we're going to take a look at the not-for-profit sector. And in each of these 3 areas, we're going to look at some of the major theories, trends, best practices that go on. And the idea here is maybe if you're doing one, then you learn more about how to do it better. If you're still deciding as to what you want to do when you finish with this program, this will give you exposure to those 3 main areas. And maybe if you're doing one, and maybe you've never thought, well, hey, maybe I would like to do this instead. Like, maybe you want to move from PR into not-for-profit. This will give you, I hope, exposure that gives you perspective that helps you make those decisions. Okay, so for this week, we have 3 readings. First is the introduction to Van Rule's book et al. That is the Communication Strategy Handbook. All right, and then the second reading is Cialdini's Persuasion, and it's basically part 1 from right at the beginning, right up to chapter 2. So it's basically chapter 1, and then finally Wilson et al. From the Strategic Communications for PR, Social Media, and Marketing, chapter 2, and you read chapter 1 last week. All right, so what do I want you to be looking for as you're reading these sources? Okay. Well, in the case of Cialdini, this is his introduction to the book, and he's going to be telling you, what he's up to and why he wrote this. Now, this work, and his other work that we are going to be reading, that he'll tell you that first one, Influence, he wrote as a heads up consumers. This is how the business works. He's gonna as you'll read, he'll tell you in here that this work was written more as a handbook for people who are in communication, public relations, sales. All right. And, as you read through it, you go, yeah, I'm not really selling anything, so this doesn't apply to me. No, actually, I'm going to suggest that, yes, it does. And the reason that I say that is because if you're in communication, and I don't care what you're doing, again, if you're working for the water company, the water department, if you're working in Senator so-and-so's office, if you're running your own not-for-profit, if you're working for a school system, you're selling something to someone. Now, you might not be selling something in the sense that there's a product that you want them to buy, but there is an idea or a process or a behavior that you want them to buy into. And those are not, yes, true. They're not the same thing, but they're like twin brother and sister. They're very, very close in their relation. So you'll get that from Cialdini. There's a lot in here as a communication professional in strategic and persuasive communications that I think you're going to find useful. Okay, over in Wilson et al. Okay, what you're going to learn, we're going to cover some of the major theories that have to do with a focus on how is it that we get people to do things, to change their behaviors, and there's a particular there's a sentence in this chapter that I think sums up what it is that they're up to and what it is they want you to focus on and understand. And here it is. it's important for us to recognize that people do not do something just because we want them to do it or because we think they should consider it in their self-interest. And boy, is that not the truth. All right. So they're going to walk you through some of the major theories as to how it is that first of all, people do things, and then by extension, what you as a communicator ought to be focusing on when you're trying to persuade someone to do something. All right. And I won't tell you what that is because then I ruin the story of the chapter for you. Okay. But over in the assignment folder in Blackboard for this week, all right, if I told you in the syllabus and I told you that throughout the semester, we're going to be writing a series of short essays. So this week is the first one. All right. So when you go over to Blackboard, you're going to find only 2 questions. All right. So the first one is a question out of Cialdini. And, if you read the chapter, you'll get it, just like that. All right. And then the second one, though, is the essay that I want you to write. And so it's essay number 1, Changing Behavior. And it goes like this. All right. Here's what I want you to do. You read chapter 2 in Wilson et al. Okay. And then I want you to decide on something you want some group of people to do, not an individual. So this isn't like, I really want my husband to do the sweeping, or I wish my wife would clean off the crumbs off the table. No. Right? Imagine yourself in the role of a communication specialist, a communication director, and you've been tasked with getting the word out to get some kind of a public response, and not just hey, folks, what do you think? Think of a group of people that you want to influence to do, and you might be saying, to do what? I'm going to leave that up to you. What do you think is important for that group to do? All right. So once you've decided on that, I want you to write a 500 to 700 word essay that's not hard. That's, 2 pages, double-spaced typed, in which you make the case as to why the behavior of your selected group ought to change. Now, when I say change, that can mean amplify, do more of what they're already doing, do less of what they're doing, or do something completely different than what they're doing. Again, your choice. All right. How you structure this essay by way of voice and tone, that is, you want to do it first person, third person, authoritative, academic, conversational, that is tone. That's completely up to you. Okay. Your completed essay, no draft work, right? Must be free of grammatical and typographical errors. And to do that, to get that done, I strongly recommend that you use one of the software writing programs, like Grammarly or Smoke, or I think there's there's like Typewrite or something like that, and get the paid version. Don't get the freebie stuff. Why? Because the freebie stuff is not going to pick out a number of mistakes. So cough up the money, get yourself a paid version, and I think you get it for like a whole year, and it's just like, $20, $30, and you can use that in everything else. Now, remember what we said back in week 1. As strategic communicators, it is imperative that you work really, really hard on how you present either yourself or whatever it is you've been tasked with in writing. Because if you don't, if you make mistakes, if you have typographical mistakes, mistakes in grammar, mistakes in usage, you will change the subject in the minds of your readers. And the subject, it doesn't matter what you're talking about. You could be on a, hey, let's stop vaping campaign. That's the subject of what you're writing about, and you change the subject to, this person doesn't know what they're talking about. That's just how the beast works. That is the public mind. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying it is. And one of the disadvantages of our electronic communication devices, like this little darling right here, the keyboard, is that although it allows you to work faster, true, it also allows you to make mistakes at a faster rate. So use something that catches those mistakes. finally, once you finish typing up and not your rough draft, your final draft, your essay, I want you to click over to a readability calculator. I've given you a link in the Blackboard discussion post, and I want you to paste it. There'll be a box, and you paste your text in there, and you click, click check readability. I want you to look carefully at the Flesch-Kincaid readability scale. Your essay must not score 8 points or higher than 8.7. And 8.7 on a Flesch-Kincaid score is roughly at like a sophomore high school level by way of understandability. Now, the way if you put it in there and it scores high, it's up like 10, 11, 12, or 14 would be really high. The way to get the score down is to write sentences that have fewer words and to use words that have fewer syllables. All right. So in other words, this scale is designed to help you become a more persuasive, by way of understandable, writer. Now, this is a scale that I use all the time when I'm writing for various magazines, and that'll be just in the requirement for if you're going to submit an article to us. This has to be, and most publications use this Flesch-Kincaid readability index, the scale. They say it has to score below F. And yeah, when I send the material into the editor, I know very well, because sometimes when I look at the score and it's higher than 8.7 and I send it in anyway, I know very well the first thing they do is they run it through the calculator, and if it's higher than 8.7, they just send it back, and I go, yeah, hey, sorry, we can't accept this in this form. It's like, okay. Okay, so when you're finished with that, post your essay in Blackboard by, just like start a new thread, just like you were doing if you were answering a discussion question. Now, a teeny, adjustment here. Your completed essays are due by Saturday night. That is May 20th at 11:59 p.m. Why? Because look, and I was watching the posts from week one. I know we're busy. We're all busy. But this is part of what you need to be busy with. That is the coursework. Okay. So please, you need to get the final product, the essay, in before Saturday night, so your peers have time to read your stuff and give you some feedback on Sunday at the very least. I thought about making it due on Monday, maybe in future, or excuse me, on Friday, maybe in future I will. So people have the weekend to read your essay and make comments. All right. Now, a little bit later in the week, once you get rolling on this, I will post some stuff that I've written. All right. With very much a persuasive, persuasion very much in mind. In fact, I'll even annotate my essay. I'll gloss it, and I'll point out to you in specific sections why it is I wrote what I wrote. Because when I write, I write deliberately. I often write in a manner designed to get people to change their behavior. And so I don't write just, oh, well, it was a wonderfully sunny day. No. I always have a very specific purpose in mind while I'm writing, and I work to touch on, and as you'll read in Wilson et al. Chapter 2, to touch on the major components of people's thought processes, from their belief systems to their values, to their subjective norms. I have those very much in mind. I sit and think, I'm like, okay, for the topic at hand and the audience that I'm aiming is at, what are their subjective norms? What is it that they assume? What is it that I suspect are likely to be core beliefs and values? How do I amplify those? That is, I confirm what it is they feel they believe. And then how do I deal with their subjective norms? That is, what they're thinking about everybody else thinking about them. So I'll post an essay that I've done with some annotations, with some glossing that gives you an idea of what we're up to. Okay. All right, everybody. So for this week, Van Hooler, Cialdini, and Wilson et al. Again, and then your first essay. Now, finally, Tuesday, Wednesday, I will post the instructional sheet for your semester paper. In advance of that, start talking with each other. I want you to break into groups of 2s or 3s, okay? And what we're going to do is in those groups, or I should say what you're going to do in those groups is you're going to pick either PR marketing or not-for-profit, and then you're going to you're going to design and write up a campaign. In not-for-profit, that could be a fundraising campaign. In marketing, that could be sales and presentation, and in PR, that could be announcement, communication, whatever. All right, and you'll put in a timeline, you'll put in a budget, you'll put in markers that would say, okay, we're where we're supposed to be, and then you'll write a summation for that will be your public presentation. And that part will mirror what you're doing in these essays. All right, so that's coming. All right, but I want you to get started on the readings. And I want you to get started thinking about this essay, which is due this week. All right, everybody, that's the material for week number 2. If you have any questions, of course, please email me. All right, I hope everybody is settling in. Not much of a transition from spring to summer, I realize. And so keep up the good work. And thank you very much, everybody, for completing the participation quiz. All of that's been reported to the authorities, whoever they are, that we're all here and we're participating. All right, everybody, thanks much. If you have questions, you know where to find me. Otherwise, I will see you on Blackboard. God bless.